Jake Morrison was having what you might call a career crisis. Not the kind where you question your life choices, although he'd done plenty of that. More like the kind where you realize you've become the galactic equivalent of a file clerk, except the files are alien artifacts and nobody actually expects you to do anything with them. Station Kepler-9 was humanity's contribution to the Galactic Archive project, which was exactly as exciting as it sounded. Picture the universe's biggest library, except instead of books, you've got mysterious alien technology that nobody can figure out, and instead of librarians, you've got scientists who've given up. Jake's job title was xenographic cryptographer, which sounded impressive at parties but really meant he spent 8 hours a day staring at symbols that might be ancient wisdom or might be alien graffiti, saying, Zorbax was here. His supervisor was Commander Threll, a Varanthi with 4 arms and the permanent expression of someone who'd just discovered humans in his department. Threll had the remarkable ability to make disappointment a physical presence in the room. All 4 of his arms seemed to sag with it. Morrison, Threll said, clicking his mandibles in what Jake had learned meant exasperation. We have a new acquisition. Jake looked up from his coffee, his 3rd cup. It was 10 a.m. Let me guess. More squiggly lines that could mean either the secrets of the universe or a recipe for space casserole. Your attitude is noted in your file. Yeah, I've got quite a collection in there. Threll's secondary arms crossed while his primary arms gestured at a holographic display. This arrived from the Outer Rim archaeological dig. It's a monolith, approximately 10,000 years old. Every major species has attempted translation. All have failed. Jake squinted at the image. It looked like someone had covered a 20-foot obelisk with symbols that had a child's idea of geometry and a drunk person's idea of organization. And, you want me to take a crack at it? I want you to catalog it and file the appropriate documentation. So keep me busy and out of your way. Your words, Morrison. Not mine. Threll's mandibles clicked again. The actual specimen arrives in Bay 7 in 1 hour. Try to look professional. Jake watched his supervisor leave, all 4 arms swinging in perfect disappointed synchronization. He took another sip of coffee and pulled out his crossword puzzle book. Thursday's puzzle. He'd been stuck on 12 down for 2 days. Ancient mystery, paradoxically simple. 7 letters. He stared at it for a moment, then snorted. Obvious. 53 minutes later, Jake stood in Bay 7 with his coffee, his crossword book, and absolutely 0 expectations. The monolith was bigger in person, which was usually how these things worked. It hummed slightly, which meant it was either active, or Station Kepler-9's ventilation system was acting up again. 50-50 odds, really. Dr. Calix was already there, which ruined Jake's plan to poke the monolith and see what happened. Calix was a crystalline, which meant he looked like someone had taught a chandelier to be condescending. He'd been stationed here for 3 years and treated the archive like it was his personal museum. Ah, the human, Calix said, his voice resonating like someone tapping expensive glassware. I've been studying the preliminary scans. The symbol structure suggests a polyalphabetic substitution cipher combined with logographic elements. Quite sophisticated. Cool, Jake said. I've requested a team from the quantum linguistics department. We should have initial results in 6 to 8 months. Or, Jake said, walking around the monolith with his coffee, we could just look at it. Calix's crystalline structure flickered with what Jake had learned was irritation. Morrison, this artifact has been examined by the greatest minds in 17 star systems. The Hive Collective spent 2 years on similar specimens. The seers of Proxima meditated on it for a decade. What exactly do you think you'll accomplish with your primitive human intuition? Jake stopped walking. He tilted his head. He looked at the symbols, then down at his crossword puzzle, then back at the symbols. Huh, he said. What? Nothing. Just, huh. He pulled out a pen and started writing in his crossword book. Calix's structure went rigid with offense. Are you doing a word puzzle? In front of the most significant archaeological find of the century? 12 down, Jake muttered. Ancient mystery, paradoxically simple. 7 letters. He wrote carefully, E-N-I-G-M-A. Then he looked back at the monolith. The symbols weren't random at all. They were clues. The same kind of lateral thinking you needed for a cryptic crossword. The kind where flower meant river because rivers flow. Where nothing was the letter O. Where everything was a game of misdirection and wordplay. Jake took a long sip of his coffee and grinned. Hey Calix, you ever do crossword puzzles? What? No. I am a scientist, not a... Yeah, that's your problem right there. Jake set his coffee mug down on a nearby console and got to work. He had a 10,000-year-old puzzle to solve, And if Thursday's crossword had taught him anything, it was that the answer was always stupidly obvious once you saw it. The coffee mug left a wet ring on the console. The ring reflected light at just the right angle to hit the monolith, and in that light, hidden symbols began to glow. "Oh," Jake said. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me." Behind him, Calix made a sound like shattering glass. "What did you just do?" "I think," Jake said slowly, "I just solved your ancient mystery with coffee and crossword puzzles." Commander Threll was going to hate this so much. Within 20 minutes, Base 7 looked like someone had called a conference of the galaxy's most overqualified scientists, and nobody had bothered to send an agenda. Jake counted. At least 12 species, 4 of whom he was pretty sure didn't even work at the station. "Explain it again," Commander Threll said, all 4 arms crossed in what Jake now recognized as defensive posture. Slowly, Jake gestured at the monolith with his pen. "Okay, so you know how a cryptic crossword works? No? Right, alien. Okay, so in a cryptic crossword, the clue has 2 parts. There's a straight definition and a wordplay element. Like if the clue is flower container for couple, the answer is vase, because a vase is a flower container, but also it sounds like 2, which is a couple. Get it?" Silence. Nobody gets it. Cool. Anyway, these symbols work the same way. They're not just representing sounds or concepts, they're lateral thinking puzzles. This symbol here? He pointed at what looked like a triangle eating a circle. Everyone's been trying to translate it as a phonetic character or an ideogram, but it's actually a clue. The triangle represents 3, and the circle being consumed means within. So it's indicating that 3 symbols within a certain sequence create the actual meaning. Doctor. Calix vibrated with barely contained rage. "That is the most absurd pseudoscientific nonsense I have ever heard. You're suggesting that an ancient civilization capable of interstellar travel communicated through word games? I mean, have you met humans?" Jake said. "We put a car in space with a dummy in the driver's seat. We named our most sophisticated Mars rover Perseverance because a 7th grader won an essay contest. Ancient Egyptians probably built the pyramids just to mess with future archaeologists. Never underestimate what bored, intelligent beings will do for entertainment." A hive collective representative, who looked like a swarm of beetles in a vaguely humanoid shape, buzzed forward. "The human may have a point. Our analysis indicated the symbols were too complex for their apparent purpose. If they serve dual functions, thank you, bug person," Jake said. "Now, the coffee thing. Pure accident, but it turns out this stone is photoreactive. The liquid created a lens effect that revealed a second layer of symbols. Watch." He picked up his mug and deliberately spilled a few drops on the console. The light refracted, and new glowing characters appeared on the monolith's surface. "Unbelievable," muttered someone in the back. "Right?" Jake said. "So I've been working through the primary symbols using crossword logic. First line translates roughly to, 'Seek not the answer, but the question,' which is very philosophical and also very annoying, because it's the same kind of meta-nonsense you get in advanced cryptics." He flipped open his crossword book to show his notes. The margins were covered in alien symbols, arrows, and annotations like, "sounds like way," and anagram of star. Commander Threll leaned in with 2 of his arms, while the other 2 remained skeptically crossed. "And this methodology has produced verifiable results?" "Well, I've translated about 30% of the visible text. The second layer, the photoreactive stuff, seems to be the actual message. The surface symbols are just the cipher key. It's like, okay, imagine if someone wrote you instructions for how to read instructions. That's what this is." "Doctor." Calix pushed forward, his crystalline structure refracting light aggressively. 30 years. I have spent 30 years studying artifacts from this civilization. I have published 17 papers. I have pioneered 3 new translation techniques, and you're telling me the solution is coffee and a children's puzzle book? Technically, it's for adults," Jake said, holding up the book. "See? It says expert level right on the cover. This is a disgrace to xenoarchaeology." "Yeah, but it's working, so..." Jake turned back to the monolith. "Now here's where it gets interesting. The message isn't just random text. It's coordinates, navigation data, and what looks like activation sequences." The room went very, very quiet. "Activation sequences for what?" Threll asked slowly. Jake chewed on his pen cap, studying the glowing symbols. "That's the question, isn't it? The surface message keeps repeating variations of great power, ultimate knowledge, and destiny of civilizations, which is either very exciting or very concerning, depending on whether you've ever seen a movie before." "I do not understand the movie reference," Threll said. "Of course you don't. Look, in human storytelling, When an ancient mysterious thing promises great power, it's either a trap or a test. Sometimes both. Usually both. Jake stepped back from the monolith, squinting at the overall pattern. But I'm not done translating. There's something else here. The symbols are arranged in a grid pattern, and grids make me think of. He flipped to a new page in his crossword book. Not a crossword, a different kind of puzzle entirely. Acrostics, he said quietly. Oh, you beautiful, paranoid ancient aliens. Dr. Calix made a sound like breaking glass. What are you talking about now? The message has a message inside the message. It's a double acrostic. If you read the first symbol of each line vertically, then the last symbol of each line vertically, they spell out a completely different text. Jake started scribbling frantically. This is brilliant. This is devious. This is exactly what I would do if I wanted to hide something from everyone except someone who thinks like a complete maniac. That, Commander Threll said with all four arms now uncrossed and hanging limp, is deeply concerning coming from you, Morrison. Jake looked up with a grin that probably didn't inspire confidence. Thanks, boss. Now somebody get me more coffee and clear your schedules. I'm about to translate something that's going to make everyone very uncomfortable. The Hive Collective representative buzzed nervously. Should we alert the Galactic Council? Probably, Jake said, already back to his symbols and crossword logic. But let me finish first. I'm on a roll, and also I really want to see Calix's face when I'm right. Doctor. Calix's structure flared bright with indignation, but he didn't leave. None of them did. They watched as the human with the coffee and the puzzle book continued decoding a mystery that had stumped the galaxy for 10,000 years, one ridiculous lateral thinking clue at a time. By hour 4, Jake had become the galaxy's most reluctant celebrity. Word had spread through Station Kepler 9 faster than a hull breach, and Base 7 now resembled a very tense interstellar press conference where everyone was armed and nobody trusted anybody else. Commander Threll had stopped being disappointed and graduated to full operational panic mode. All 4 of his arms were now occupied, one holding a communicator, one scrolling through emergency protocols, one gesturing at security personnel, and one pressed against his forehead in what Jake assumed was the Varanthi equivalent of a stress headache. Morrison, Threll said with the tone of someone whose day had gone irreversibly wrong. I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. Representatives from 9 governments are en route. The Galactic Council has been notified. The media has somehow obtained footage of you solving ancient mysteries with beverage-based techniques. That's a weird way to say coffee. But okay, Jake said, not looking up from his work. He'd graduated from his crossword book to a tablet, where he was mapping out symbol relationships with the kind of chaotic energy that made organized people nervous. Dr. Calix hadn't moved in 2 hours. He just stood there, crystalline structure occasionally flickering like a laptop trying not to crash. This cannot be happening, he muttered for the 16th time. 3 decades of research. 3 decades. Hey, look at it this way, Jake offered. You got to witness history. That's worth something, right? I was supposed to. Make history, not witness a human make a mockery of it with parlor tricks. They're not parlor tricks, they're cognitive puzzles. There's a difference. Jake highlighted a sequence of symbols. Although I did learn this particular technique from a book I bought at an airport, so maybe you have a point. A new voice cut through the chaos. Perhaps the human could focus on translation rather than comedy. Jake looked up to see Ambassador Rex, a draconid whose species had invented bureaucracy as a form of psychological warfare. She had scales that looked like they'd been polished specifically to reflect disappointment back at people. Ambassador, Threll said, snapping to attention with all available arms. I wasn't informed you'd be attending personally. A 10,000-year-old mystery solved by a cryptographer with a coffee addiction seemed worth investigating. Her eyes, all 3 of them fixed on Jake. Show me what you've found. Jake took a breath. Time to sound professional. Right, so, the primary text describes coordinates to a location in the Kovath sector. The activation sequences appear to initialize some kind of ancient network. References keep mentioning a convergence point and the instrument of ascension, which sounds ominous but could just be ancient alien marketing speak. Hard to tell. And the power signature? Rex asked. Yeah, about that. Jake pulled up his analysis. The monolith isn't just transmitting this information. It's linked to something. Based on the energy readings, something really, really big. Like, rearrange a solar system big. The room somehow got quieter, which Jake hadn't thought was possible. A weapon, someone whispered. Or a tool, Jake countered. The text is weirdly ambiguous. Lots of language about reshaping destiny and claiming inheritance, and the worthy shall ascend. It reads like either a user manual for godlike power or the galaxy's most elaborate Faust. Infomercial. Dr. Calix finally moved, his structure brightening. If this is genuine, if there truly is technology capable of such power, then every species in the galaxy would have claimed to study it, to understand it, to weaponize it. Ambassador Rex finished coolly. Yes, Doctor. We're all thinking it. Jake felt the atmosphere shift. Suddenly, Bay 7 felt less like a research facility and more like the world's most polite standoff. He noticed that several of the observers had positioned themselves near exits. Others had moved closer to the monolith. Everyone was doing the diplomatic version of sizing each other up. Okay, Jake said slowly. This is getting weird. Can we all just agree that nobody's stealing the ancient doomsday device until we at least finish reading the manual? There is no we, Morrison, Rex said. This discovery falls under Galactic Heritage Protocol, which means 17 different clauses that every government interprets differently, interrupted a Zephyrite representative who looked like a floating jellyfish made of static electricity. The Zephyrite Collective asserts historical claim to all Kovath sector artifacts. Ridiculous, snapped a Krell observer, who resembled an upright tortoise with an attitude problem. The Krell Dominion surveyed that sector first. 3,000 years after the Zephyrites, the jellyfish crackled back. Jake looked at Commander Threll. This is going well. Threll's mandibles clicked rapidly. Morrison, please tell me you haven't translated the actual activation sequences yet. Oh, I definitely have. They're surprisingly straightforward once you get past the cryptic wordplay. It's like the ancient aliens wanted someone to figure it out eventually, but only someone who thought in puzzles instead of pure logic. Jake paused, which is weird now that I say it out loud. Why would they do that? Perhaps, Dr. Calix said, his earlier anger replaced with something like scientific curiosity. Because pure logic can be dangerous. Computational systems, artificial intelligence, hive minds, all could potentially solve traditional encryption through brute force. But lateral thinking, creativity, intuition, those are harder to program. Jake stared at him. That's actually really smart. I do occasionally have insights, despite your coffee-based methodology proving more effective than my life's work. Calix moved closer to the monolith. What if this is a filter, a way of ensuring only certain types of intelligence could access whatever this leads to? Great, Jake said. So we're dealing with ancient aliens who were into IQ tests. That's not concerning at all. Ambassador Rex's tail twitched. Continue the translation, Morrison, but know that from this moment forward, this information is classified under Galactic Security Mandate 7. Any attempt to access, replicate, or act upon, an alarm shrieked through Bay 7. Commander Threll looked at his communicator, and all 4 of his arms went rigid. We have unauthorized ships decloaking near the station. Multiple vectors. Someone's been listening. Jake looked at the monolith, at the assembled representatives now reaching for weapons and communication devices, at his innocent crossword puzzle book sitting next to an artifact that might contain the key to ultimate power. So, he said to nobody in particular, this is the part where everything goes sideways, isn't it? The monolith pulsed brighter, as if answering his question. Yeah, Jake muttered, grabbing his coffee. That's what I thought. Station Kepler 9 went from academic research facility to galactic powder keg in approximately 90 seconds. Jake had never seen so many species simultaneously reach for weapons while pretending they weren't reaching for weapons. Everyone remain calm, Commander Threll announced, which was the universal signal that nobody should remain calm. Station security is handling the situation. Station security. Is 6 people and a Roomba with attitude, Jake muttered. We're not handling anything. Ambassador Rex was already coordinating with her fleet. The Zephyrite had gone full lightning storm mode. The Krell representative had withdrawn into his shell, which was apparently the tortoise equivalent of calling in reinforcements. Even Dr. Calix had shifted his crystalline structure into something that looked disturbingly like a defensive configuration. Morrison, Threll barked, how much of the activation sequence have you translated? Enough to know we probably shouldn't activate it without reading the fine print. That is not the answer, The lights flickered. Jake's tablet beeped urgently. The monolith pulsed in response, and new symbols began appearing across its surface like someone had pressed fast forward on a cosmic PowerPoint presentation. Jake said eloquently. That's new. What did you do? Dr. Calix demanded. Nothing. I was just standing here having an existential crisis about interstellar politics, and it just started. Jake squinted at the cascading symbols. Wait. Oh no. Oh no is not a phrase I want to hear right now, Threll said. Jake was already scribbling, his crossword-trained brain processing the new information at a speed that probably wasn't healthy. The activation sequence. It's not a passcode. It's a countdown. The monolith has been transmitting since we figured out the first layer. We didn't activate anything, we just proved we could read the instructions. And? Rex's voice had gone dangerously quiet. And now everyone knows where the ancient superweapon is, and approximately 7 different governments are racing to get there first. Jake looked up from his notes, which I'm guessing is why we have unauthorized ships outside. Somebody was monitoring our communications. The room erupted in accusations, denials, and what Jake assumed were various species-specific threats. He tuned it out and focused on the symbols, because something was bothering him, something about the structure of the message. "Hey!" he shouted. Everyone shut up for like 30 seconds. Surprisingly, they did. "Thank you." "Okay, here's the thing. I've been translating this like it's straightforward instructions, right? Go here, do this, claim your prize. Very standard ancient artifact stuff. But there's something wrong with it." "Wrong how?" Dr. Calix asked. Jake gestured at his tablet. "The grammar, the syntax. In crossword puzzles, when a clue seems too straightforward, it's usually misdirection. The answer is never what you think it is on first read. You have to look at it sideways." He pulled up his analysis, fingers flying across the screen. "So I started looking at this sideways. And there's a second message. Remember the acrostic pattern I mentioned? I thought it was just reinforcing the main text, but it's not. It's a completely separate message running parallel to everything else." "What does it say?" Thrall asked. Jake's fingers stopped moving. He stared at the screen, then at the monolith, then back at the screen. "You have got to be kidding me, Morazin." "The surface message says this is a weapon system. Ultimate power, reshape galaxies, ascend to greatness, all that good stuff. Very appealing to any species with ambition and a military budget." Jake looked around the room, which is exactly what it's supposed to say, because it's bait. Silence. The hidden message is a warning. It says, and I'm paraphrasing because ancient alien grammar is weird, "This is a test. Those who seek power will find only their end. Those who seek wisdom will find the true question." Dr. Calix's structure flickered rapidly. A test? A 10,000-year-old test? Not just a test. A filter. Jake started pacing, his crossword book clutched in one hand like a talisman. Think about it. What kind of species tries to activate an ancient weapon system the moment they figure out where it is? What kind of civilization immediately jumps to, "Let's use this to dominate everyone else"? The kind that survives, Ambassador Rex said coldly. "Or the kind that destroys itself," Jake countered. "The hidden message says this has happened before. Multiple times. Civilizations find the monolith, decode the surface message, race to activate the weapon, and boom, they trigger something that wipes them out. It's not a weapon. It's a galactic intelligence test, and the passing grade is not taking the test." "That is the most absurd." "Is it though?" Jake interrupted the Krell representative. "Because I've translated the casualty list. There are 17 extinct civilizations mentioned in the hidden text. All of them decoded this. All of them went for the power. All of them are gone." The room had gone very, very still again. "The real question," Jake continued, "isn't, how do we activate this? It's, why would we want to? The ancients who built this weren't offering power. They were testing whether species were smart enough to recognize a trap. Whether they'd choose wisdom over ambition. Whether they'd, oh hell, it's a trolley problem. It's a massive civilization-scale trolley problem." "A what problem?" Thrall asked. "Never mind, human philosophy thing. Point is, the weapon is actually a self-destruct mechanism. Anyone who activates it, thinking they'll gain ultimate power, instead triggers a cascade that targets their home system. It's cosmic irony meets galactic natural selection." Dr. Calix drifted closer to the monolith, studying it with new eyes. "But why? Why would anyone build such a thing? Because maybe they got tired of aggressive species spreading through the galaxy? Because they wanted to leave behind a filter that would only let the peaceful ones through? I don't know. I'm a cryptographer, not a xenopsychologist." Jake rubbed his eyes. "But I do know that right now, there are multiple ships heading to those coordinates, and if any of them activate the system, they doom themselves." Rex finished. Her 3 eyes narrowed. "You're certain of this translation?" "As certain as I am that 12 down is Enigma, yeah." "That is not reassuring." "Well, it's what we've got." Jake looked at the monolith, at the pulsing symbols that had stumped the galaxy for millennia. The ancients made it solvable, but only by someone who thought in puzzles instead of power. Someone who'd look at Ultimate Weapon and think, this seems suspicious, instead of, I want that. Someone like you, Dr. Calyx said quietly. Someone like a human doing crosswords at work instead of taking things seriously. Yeah. Jake grinned without humor. We almost destroyed ourselves like 50 times in our history. Nuclear weapons, climate change, that brief period where we thought social media was a good idea. We're really good at recognizing existential traps because we've stepped in most of them. Commander Threll's communicator beeped urgently. He listened, then looked at Jake with all 4 arms hanging limp. The Krell Dominion fleet just entered the Kovath sector. They're proceeding to the coordinates. They're not responding to hails. Jake felt his stomach drop. How long until they reach the activation point? 40 minutes. Great. Fantastic. Love that for us. Jake grabbed his tablet. Okay, new plan. The monolith is a transmitter, right? So we use it to send the warning. We broadcast the real message to every ship heading for those coordinates. And if they don't believe us? Rex asked. Jake met her 3-eyed gaze. Then we're about to find out if the ancients were right about aggressive civilizations. 40 minutes to stop a galactic disaster turned out to be exactly as stressful as it sounded. I need full transmission access, Jake said, already working on the monolith's interface. And someone needs to convince the Krell fleet to stop being suicidally stupid for like 10 minutes. The Krell do not respond well to being called stupid, Threll observed. Yeah, well, they're about to trigger a cosmic bear trap, so I'm not super concerned about their feelings right now. Ambassador Rex was already on her communicator, her voice sharp. Krell Command, this is Ambassador Rex under Galactic Emergency Protocol. Your fleet must halt immediately. We have intelligence suggesting… Suggesting what? The Krell commander's voice crackled through. That you want the power for yourselves? We decoded the message. We know what awaits at those coordinates. The Krell Dominion will not be denied its destiny. Jake looked at Threll. Are all military commanders this predictably terrible? Or is it just the ones in space? Morrison, the broadcast. Working on it. Jake's fingers flew across the tablet. The monolith responded to his commands, which should have been impossible, but apparently thinking in crossword puzzles was the universe's worst security clearance. Okay, I'm piggybacking on the monolith's transmission frequency. Everyone in the Kovath sector is about to get a very important message about not being idiots. Dr. Calyx positioned himself next to Jake. If this works, you'll have saved countless lives. If it doesn't, at least I'll die knowing I was right. That's worth something. That is worth nothing. You're not great at motivational speeches, Calyx. The transmission initialized. Jake's translation of the hidden message began broadcasting on every frequency the monolith could reach, in 17 languages, with a very clear subject line that translated roughly to, seriously do not activate the thing. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Zephrite collective fleet arrived at the coordinates. Then a Varanthi science vessel. Then 3 more ships Jake didn't recognize, because apparently everyone had been eavesdropping and decided this was a great time to grab some ancient power. This is bad, Jake said unnecessarily. Commander, Threll was coordinating with station defense, which consisted mostly of strongly worded warnings. Ambassador Rex was trying diplomatic channels. The various representatives in Base 7 were arguing about jurisdiction, while the galaxy collectively rushed towards self-destruction. And then the Krell fleet reached the activation point. They're initiating the sequence, Threll reported, his voice hollow. Jake watched his screen, where the monolith was showing him exactly what would happen next. The activation would trigger. The system would identify the Krell homeworld. The cascade would begin. Come on, he muttered. Come on, read the message. Read the damn message. 5 seconds. 4, 3. The Krell commander's voice cut through every channel. What is this? There's a secondary sequence initializing. It's targeting a pause. A horrible, dawning pause. It's targeting Krell Prime. This isn't a weapon. It's a trap. Jake finished quietly. Yeah. That's what I've been saying. Abort! The Krell commander's voice cracked with panic. All ships, full reverse. Abort the sequence. But it was too late. The system had started. Jake stared at his screen, at the countdown that would end a civilization. He looked at the monolith, at the symbols he'd decoded with coffee and crosswords, at the puzzle that had a solution everyone missed. Wait, he said. Wait, there's another layer. Morrison, there's no time. There's always another layer. Jake was already translating, his brain firing on pure adrenaline and caffeine. The test isn't just, don't activate it. That's too simple. The test is figuring out how to stop it once someone inevitably activates it anyway. Dr. Calix's structure blazed bright. The ancients knew someone would eventually fail the test. They built a failsafe into the test itself. Jake laughed, slightly hysterical. It's a crossword within a crossword. The answer to how do you stop it was hidden in the warning message. You have to solve the puzzle to prove you understand why the puzzle exists. His fingers flew. Symbols rearranged. The hidden acrostic revealed a shutdown sequence that was simultaneously obvious and invisible, elegant and simple. The kind of answer that makes you smack your forehead once you see it. Broadcasting shutdown sequence now, Jake said, and pressed enter. The monolith pulsed once, twice. The countdown stopped at 7 seconds. Every ship in the Kovath sector received the shutdown code simultaneously. The ancient system, primed to destroy, instead went dormant. The test ended. The galaxy didn't. In Bay 7, nobody moved for a full 10 seconds. Then Commander Threll sat down heavily, all 4 arms shaking. Ambassador Rex closed all 3 eyes. Dr. Calix's structure dimmed to barely a glow. The various representatives looked at each other with the universal expression of people who just stared into the abyss and blinked first. Jake set down his tablet and picked up his coffee. It was cold. He drank it anyway. So, he said into the silence, who wants to help me write the report on this? Because it's going to be really awkward explaining that we almost accidentally ended a civilization because someone didn't read the instructions carefully enough. The Krell commander's voice came through, subdued. The Krell Dominion acknowledges its error. We are withdrawing from the sector. Yeah, Jake said. Good call. He looked at the monolith one last time, at the 10,000-year-old puzzle that almost killed everyone. The ancients had been right. The test wasn't about being smart enough to activate something. It was about being wise enough to question whether you should. And then, when someone inevitably failed that test, being clever enough to fix it. Humans, Jake reflected, had a lot of practice at fixing their own mistakes. It was basically their whole thing. 3 days later, Jake Morrison was famous, which was exactly as terrible as he'd predicted. His face was on 17 different galactic news networks. Someone had made a holographic documentary titled The Human Who Solved the Unsolvable. The Galactic Council wanted to give him a medal. He'd received 47 job offers, 12 marriage proposals from species he didn't recognize, and one very confused fruit basket from the Krell Dominion with an apology card that read, "Sorry, we almost destroyed ourselves. Thanks for the help." He hated all of it. "I just want to do my crosswords in peace," Jake told Commander Threll, who had become significantly less disappointed in him and significantly more concerned about the attention Jake was attracting. "Morrison, you saved the Krell civilization and potentially prevented a galactic war. Peace may be difficult to achieve." "Yeah, well, fame is exhausting and I didn't sign up for it." Jake slouched in his chair in Bay 7, which had been declared a historic site and also a security zone, which meant he couldn't even drink coffee there without someone documenting it for posterity. Dr. Calix approached, his crystalline structure polished to what Jake assumed was formal sheen. "Morrison, I wanted to. That is to say." He paused, flickering. "You were correct, and I was wrong. Your methodology, while unconventional, proved superior to 3 decades of my research. I am professionally humbled." "Calix, are you actually apologizing?" "I am acknowledging reality, which is significantly more difficult." Jake grinned. "You know what? I'll take it. And hey, your insight about the failsafe was crucial. We made a good team, briefly, in a crisis situation, under extreme duress. Perhaps the most ringing endorsement I have ever received." Ambassador Rex arrived with what Jake had learned was her version of good news face, which still looked vaguely threatening. "Morrison, the council has approved your transfer request." "Wait, what transfer request?" "The one you filed 17 minutes ago." Jake looked at his tablet. He had, in fact, filed a transfer request while trying to avoid another interview. "Oh, right. Where am I going?" "Nowhere. You're staying on Station Kepler 9, but with a new assignment." She gestured, and a hologram appeared. Another artifact. This one looked like a cube having an existential crisis. "What is it?" Jake asked warily. "We don't know. It was discovered in the same region as the monolith. It's been classified as unsolvable for 8,000 years. Every major civilization has attempted translation." Jake stared at the cube. Then, at his crossword puzzle book. Then back at the cube. Is that a Sudoku pattern on the surface?" Threll's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Your assessment? Jake picked up his coffee fresh this time and his puzzle book. He walked over to the hologram, studying it from different angles. The symbols were arranged in a 9x9 grid. Each row, column, and section had repeating elements. The internal logic was obvious once you stopped trying to translate it and started trying to solve it. Yeah, he said. Yeah, this is definitely a Sudoku. Give me 20 minutes. Morrison, Doctor, Calix said carefully. It has stumped civilizations for 8 millennia. Yeah, but did any of those civilizations have a guy who does the newspaper puzzle section during his lunch break? Jake was already working, pen moving across his tablet. Because I'm starting to think the ancient aliens weren't testing for intelligence. They were testing for the kind of person who solves puzzles because they're bored, not because they want power. That's a disturbing theory, Rex observed. That's humanity in a nutshell. Jake filled in another symbol. We went to the moon because we were curious and competitive. We built the internet to share research, and ended up using it mostly for cat videos. We solve ancient cosmic mysteries with coffee and crosswords because nobody told us we were supposed to take them. Seriously. He stepped back. The cube pulsed. Symbols realigned. There, Jake said. Solutions broadcasting now. Turns out it was instructions for a really elaborate water filtration system. Kind of anticlimactic, honestly. The room was silent again. 18 minutes, Threll said faintly. You solved an 8,000-year-old mystery in 18 minutes. Yeah, but it was an easy Sudoku. I've seen harder ones in the Sunday paper. Jake picked up his coffee and his crossword book. So, what else you got? Because if I'm going to be the galaxy's puzzle guy, you might as well keep them coming. Beats doing interviews. Ambassador Rex and Commander Threll exchanged glances. We have 73 classified artifacts awaiting analysis, Rex said slowly. Cool. I'll need more coffee and someone to keep the reporters away. Also maybe a door that locks. And a raise. The raise is already approved. Then we're good. Jake headed for the exit, pausing to look back at the monolith that had started everything. You know, I bet the ancient aliens are out there somewhere, laughing at us, building cosmic puzzles and watching species either figure it out or blow themselves up. It's kind of brilliant. Or deeply disturbing, Dr. Calix offered. Yeah, but mostly brilliant. Jake grinned. Anyway, I've got a Thursday crossword to finish. Let me know when the next ancient mystery shows up. I'll be in my office, being spectacularly unqualified for fame. He left Bay 7 to the sound of various species trying to process the fact that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization might be a guy who solved cosmic mysteries the same way he solved newspaper puzzles with coffee, sarcasm, and absolutely no respect for how impressive everyone else thought they were. Commander Threll looked at Ambassador Rex. He's going to solve all 73 artifacts by the end of the month, isn't he? Probably, she agreed. The question is whether that's good or terrifying. With humans, Dr. Calix observed, his structure flickering with something that might have been amusement. It's usually both. In his office, Jake Morrison cracked open his crossword book, took a sip of coffee, and filled in 12 down. Enigma, he muttered. Told you it was obvious. The galaxy, he reflected, really needed to start making its ancient mysteries more challenging.